thought we was live.
Good evening, good evening. Welcome to Blue Table Talk. My name is Tawana Collins Boo, and I have my favorite sidekick, speech language pathologist here with me today, Mr. Arnell Brady. And today we're going to be talking about speech therapy minutes in a group or individual minutes. So, Mr. Brady,
Yes.
how you feel about speech therapy minutes?
Well, you know, the moment you start talking about time, you're really talking about money.
Okay.
Because time is money. Now, speech therapy minutes, as you just said, generally can be given one of two ways, or in both ways. They can be given individually or in a group.
Right.
All right? And a group is considered two or more. So the minute you add another person to an individual's session, that person is now in a group. And the state of Illinois, just like all the other states in the union, have come up with what they call a formula for distributing speech language pathology treatment minutes to students who are eligible for the speech language impaired program.
Okay.
Now, in Illinois, like in most states, when special education really got started, say back in the 70s, they began to look closely at the different types of disorders that they had. Autism, emotional behavior disorder, orthopedic, learning disabled, intellectually impaired. They started looking at those, and they started to break them down into subcategories: mild, moderate, severe, profound. And because the students were so young, they said that the more profound the disorder, they felt as though the more minutes should be given to that student. And in Illinois, they said that if you were profound in speech and language impaired program, you should get 90 plus minutes a week, because the treatment needed to be intense, it needed to be frequent, and it needed to be focused so that it could do the child some good.
Okay.
Severe, they said 60 to 90 minutes.
Right.
The moderate, they said 30 to 60 minutes. And the mild, 15 to 30 minutes. And that sort of makes sense. And I can understand how they came up with that kind of formula.
Okay.
Because if you provide quality speech language pathology treatment services on a regular basis, and by regular I mean at least, if it's profound, should be much more frequent than we say if it is mild. So we would say profound, maybe they should be getting it every day or every school day, whereas the mild, maybe 2-3 times a week.
Okay.
And why is that so? That is so because the basic intention of the special education program in America was to take a child who was having so much difficulty that they could not advance in the grades because of their handicap. So the policymakers said that what we should do is to take this child and give them quality, focused, intense, frequent treatment, fix them in a sense, and then put them back into the general education population.
All right.
But we haven't seen that happen, have we?
No,
we
I'm just going to say no. I didn't know that's what was supposed to happen.
That was the intent. But now, here, let's fast forward to 2019. And what do we see? We see in many of our educational agencies, they are distributing therapy minutes based upon not so much the needs of the child, but on what the school system wants to afford to give. And so now we see students who have profound speech-language impairments getting 30 minutes a week in a group.
Yeah.
Now, 30 minutes a week in a group really means that you have to divide that 30 minutes by the 2 students.
2? I didn't see more than 2.
More than 2. So now you have, so let's just say it's 2.
Okay.
So now you have a child who has been prescribed 30 minutes a week getting 15 minutes a week. Now, if you take that group up to 4, which a lot of them do, put 4 in a group, and 4 divided into 30 goes what? Now you're down to about 7 minutes a person.
7 minutes.
When the IEP might say 30 minutes a week.
Right.
But they're put into this group. So what does that do to the therapy minutes? It makes the therapy minutes useless in terms of helping to establish change in the child's ability to develop and use speech and language to learn. We see so many times that when a child has a speech and language impairment, especially in the autistic population, that speech and language impairment can be complex because autism is a neurodegenerative condition. That means it can involve so many different aspects of the child's functioning and the child's behavior and the child's development because it is neurological. And that neurology has to play an underlying kind of support system to many of our behaviors. And so the goals that are being set up for these students are really not addressing those underlying factors of the neurology, of the neuromotor sensory functioning. It's really addressing and providing entertainment minutes for the clinician providing the services. So when a clinician goes into a therapy room, has 4 students, have 30 minutes, what can they really do? With a child, say one child, let's just say they're working on speech articulation. Let's say one of the children in the group is hardly verbal at all. That is, rarely produces articulate speech. Then you might have a student in there who talks all the time. And then you might have 2 in between. Now the clinician has 30 minutes. What can they address when, if you look at the whole therapy process, the framework for therapy is to establish behaviors. And by that I mean to establish behavior. It could mean establishing comprehension of vocabulary. It could mean establishing sentence structure, grammar, uttering sentences. It could mean articulating a particular sound or a group of sounds. It could mean paying attention for a certain amount of time. But what the clinician's goal is to establish that behavior. Mm-hmm. But sometimes the behavior cannot be established right away. And what they might have to do is shape the behavior. Now, if you have 4 students all on different levels, mm-hmm. and you only have 30 minutes, and you only have 7 minutes to give to a student, how in the world are you going to be able to shape a behavior?
But that's what I never understood. I didn't understood why a speech therapist was having the kids sit at a table in a group when we all know that each child on the spectrum is different.
Well, it boils down to this. The business people have taken over the running of the school.
Okay.
And they have whittled down the services to a level that they want to afford. And so because the parents, the administrators, the teachers, the aides, because they don't voice their concern, because they don't voice their opposition to this type of procedure, it gets carried out. And if the clinician don't see those 4 kids every 30 minutes, mm-hmm. they'll get written up and drum out of the system, and another person quickly brought in to fill their place. So the clinicians are going along with this. And we can truly say this is really unethical behavior.
It is.
Because the clinician is there to provide the best quality service available. And if the school does not have the setup, they need to say, we need more. Mm-hmm. We need more. And I saw myself, I witnessed this happening not only in the Chicago schools, the Evanston schools, the South Suburban schools, West schools, downstate schools were saying that if a child is on the autism spectrum, don't put speech and language impaired on their IEP so that they would be eligible for speech and language services, because they say that's all included in the package. Mm-mm. But that is depriving that student of the professional services of a speech language pathologist who might be better equipped to establish, shape, develop, and maintain speech and language behaviors in the student. So now it's left to a learning disabilities teacher, a special education mm-hmm. teacher who has very, very little, if any, training in speech therapy. So is minutes important? Yes. Yeah. Minutes are very important, and parents need to demand that those students are given adequate time to develop behaviors that is going to serve them in their learning experience.
They should demand one-on-one minutes, individual minutes.
One-on-one individual minutes, but one-on-one individual minutes by a provider who can address the real needs of that child. What we're seeing happening is many of these clinicians are simply entertaining the students for that short amount of time and then passing them on. We're seeing children, the outcome. Somebody needs to look at the outcome, but a lot closer. They need to look at the outcome of this therapy that is given in these time slots. What are the outcomes at the end of the semester? You know, I have many parents talking about, well, we don't get a report card from the speech language pathologist at the school. She talks to us at the parent meetings that everything is going okay.
No, I used to sit in the class and I used to voice my opinion. I never liked the group thing because it was distractions, and that 30 minutes was up. She was packing up her stuff, leaving. I'm like, what services was rendered today? So I always had a problem with that.
What grade was that?
This was when George was in like 3rd grade.
One of the most important grades there is.
Yeah, 2nd, 3rd grade. I just never liked the group thing because I would sit back and watch, and it just was like, by the time she get going, it's time to go. That 30 minutes was up, and I always like, how you teaching in a group speech therapy? They should have individual speech therapy. So I never was a fan of that, and still not.
And like I said before, in the state of Illinois, they were saying if the child is on the autism spectrum, they're going to be given language arts, they're going to be given language intervention in their classroom. Now, if you have 10 students on the autism spectrum in a classroom, they're probably all on different levels. They're probably all showing different intelligence. So how do you individually address those kids? So you have to find some activity that is going to pull them all in. So, but it's really not helping anybody. It's simply entertaining them instead of shaping, developing, maintaining, establishing carryover so they can take that behavior out into the world.
Right.
So it's, minutes is important.
They're very important, but again, like I just think that they should have individual minutes. There shouldn't be no minutes in a group because there's no distractions, or just that child is different. Yes. So I just think that the minutes should be separate, and if you put it out in a separate class or to the side, because it was like they was doing the speech therapy, and it was like kids still
running around, talking,
the teacher was still teaching, and it was like a little round table on the side, and she was doing speech therapy. So that was two different things, and they trying to focus on that when she teaching at the board.
Yeah, but one solution might be being put forth by the American Speech, Language, and Hearing Association out of Rockville, Maryland, which is the only credentialing body in the United States for speech language pathologists and audiologists. They now have developed a speech language pathology assistance program. As a matter of fact, the test is coming out in November, to where a person with a bachelor's degree can take a national exam to demonstrate their proficiency in providing supervised therapy services to school-aged children.
Okay.
And this will allow more direct individual services to be given by increasing the number of people who can provide those services. The first group will be taking the test, I think it's around November the 16th.
Oh, okay. That's coming up.
That's going to be in Orlando, Florida. They'll be taking the test. I think it's 40 people will be taking that test. And hopefully it's going to spread around the country to where we will be able to bring in the speech language pathology assistants into the schools. Because occupational therapists have occupational therapy assistants. The physical therapist has assistants. Why can't the speech language pathologists also have assistants? Now, in some states they do. I am licensed in the state of Indiana, and I'm allowed to have 2 bachelor level assistants working with me in the state of Indiana.
Oh, okay.
So Illinois need to get on board and increase the number of assistants that can work in the schools in Illinois, so that these children can get the necessary minutes that's going to help them.
Now that'd be great.
Yes.
You had an assistant with you, and then the assistant can help break down some minutes. If it's 2 kids or 3, that's perfect.
So that a lot more individual services can be given. Because remember, as I said in the very beginning, the intent of special education was not to put these kids in and let them make a career out of special education. The intent was to help that child develop learning strategies so that they could become an independent, happy student progressing through the different grades.
I never knew that. I just learned that today.
Yeah. Well, and we have had many of the heads of the federal Department of Education have expressed real dismay and real disappointment and discouragement in the amount of money that is spent on education, special education in this country, and the results that are coming out of it. They're spending billions of dollars and getting nothing for the money. Something has to change.
And soon.
And soon. And soon. And, we talked about it a few sessions ago. We talked about how the Supreme Court has put some teeth into the Department of Education, making sure that these local school agencies are providing quality education to the special education students, and not just basic and not just enough to get by and pass them on to the next grade when they are not really making no significant progress in their learning and their ability to become independent. So the minutes are very important, because the minutes have sort of shaped how these local educational agencies are going to respond and how they're going to treat students. As they find ways of spending money on other things other than helping the special ed student, then they say, let's cut what we're giving to the special ed student. Or
they always want to cut their services first, cut our services
or
first.
Even worse, to not increase it so that it can become an effective and a significant educational experience. They need to increase it to the point to where it can be productive and not just be a maintenance shell for maintaining the handicap of these students while they collect funds for them. It should be more. We need to demand more success. We need to demand more positive outcomes. And if we start demanding more positive outcomes, I'm sure some of those politicians are going to say, well, you need resources and we're going to give them to you. We're going to give you the tools that you need to help these students become independent and help these students to get back into the general population.
Well, that's the whole goal. So hopefully we can and push them to give us more services instead of taking away services. So, and far as the minutes, if your child getting minutes in the group and you don't see no progress in your child with the minutes, you need to voice your opinion and let it be known that you're not satisfied and that you would like to have your child receive minutes individual, or if the speech therapists have to come back twice a week instead of once a week for the 30 minutes, whatever is needed to break down. So if you have 4 kids in a group and it's 30 minutes, because it's just not fair. So if your child is getting 30 minutes a week, and with a group of 4 or 3, and you're not seeing any progress, please voice your opinion and let it be known. But as I always say, if you want individual minutes with the best speech therapist in Chicago, you can come on over to Brady Speech, 5228 South Blackstone, and the number is 773-493-4000. Give him a call, and you can get the best speech therapist in Chicago, and I would say everywhere else. I haven't been nowhere else. All I know is Brady Speech. So, and I know it's the best. So, give him a call if you're not satisfied with the minutes and the services that you're receiving somewhere else. Come on to Brady Speech. And I want to thank you all for tuning in to Blue Table Talk tonight. I really appreciate.
And Mrs. Booth, before you sign off, we should add that on October the 2nd, President Trump did sign the Autism Care Act.
And so
1.8 million has now gone into.
Is it a million or billion?
Billion.
Billion. Okay.
1.8 billion.
1.8 billion
into providing services and resources and research for people on the autism spectrum.
That's great. So now we just have to wait and follow the money and find out.
Now all we really need to do is go to because now that the money has been approved, all we need to do now is go to our state senators, our representatives, and ask, where is the money for Illinois?
We want some of that money right.
That's right. We want
over
to
here on the south side of Chicago.
That's right. We want to participate in it because the south side and the west side of Chicago is getting very little, and there's very little participation by those two sides of the town too. We got to participate more in these behaviors and in these legislations and these different groups that they have studying this kind of stuff and even dispensing the resources. We got to step up.
Well, we definitely gonna step up because we definitely need more services in our neighborhoods instead of going out to the suburbs. So,
and in the very near future, I am going to contact our state senators and ask,
and I'll
what's the deal with Illinois?
And I'll be right behind you. Contact
what's
me too.
The deal with the south side of Chicago?
So, thank you all for tuning in tonight. If you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and we'll see you all next week. I have a special show coming up next week, Blue Talk Panel. So please tune in next week and check us out. Thank you all for tuning in. Good night.